Before oil, before gold, before cotton became king, there was ash. In 1790, the very first patent ever issued in the United States wasn't for a machine or an invention that changed the world. It was signed by George Washington himself, and it was for a process of making something called potash from wood ashes. Settlers could earn $3 to $6 per acre just from burning their trees and selling the ashes. That was real money back then. Ships loaded with American ash crossed the Atlantic to feed Europe's soap and glass industries. Then, almost overnight, it vanished. By the 1850s, the entire American potash industry had collapsed. The knowledge, the techniques, the understanding of what made those ashes so valuable, gone. So what happened? And more importantly, what did we forget? Here's what most gardening advice gets wrong about wood ash. They'll tell you it's a great source of potassium. They'll say sprinkle it on your garden. Maybe 20 pounds per 1,000 square feet, they suggest. What they don't tell you is that wood ash mixed with water creates something chemically similar to drain cleaner. When ash meets moisture, it releases potassium hydroxide, the same compound used to make lye for soap. Scientists have measured fresh wood ash slurries with pH levels above 11, sometimes reaching 12. For context, household bleach sits around 12.5. A medical case study from the Missouri Poison Center documented a toddler who suffered chemical burns simply from playing with water near cold fireplace ash. The alkaline compounds were still active enough to damage skin on contact. In soil, this alkaline spike does something insidious. At high pH, essential nutrients like iron, manganese, and phosphorus become chemically locked. They're still there, but plants can't access them. The University of Wisconsin Extension warns that excessive ash can push soil pH above 9, creating serious problems for most crops. So raw ash is dangerous, corrosive to skin, damaging to soil, toxic to seedlings. And yet, our ancestors built an entire industry around it. They weren't fools. They knew something we've forgotten. The colonists didn't just scatter ash on fields, they processed it. They built structures called asheries, leaching barrels where water slowly percolated through ash, extracting the soluble compounds. But here's the key that gets overlooked in history books. This wasn't an instant process. It took time, days, sometimes weeks. And during that time, something was happening that nobody in the 1700s could have named or measured, but which modern microbiology can now explain. When you combine ash, water, and any organic matter, even the residue naturally present in the wood itself, you create conditions for microbial fermentation. Specifically, you invite lactic acid bacteria to the party. Research published in the journal Bioscience, Biotechnology, and Biochemistry has documented how lactobacillus species colonize fermented plant materials. These bacteria don't just sit there, they work. They consume sugars and produce organic acids, primarily lactic acid, but also acetic and citric acids. And here's where chemistry gets interesting. Those organic acids do something remarkable to minerals. They wrap around metal ions like potassium and calcium in a process called chelation. The word comes from the Greek for claw. The acid molecule literally grabs the mineral and holds it in a stable, protected form. Chelated minerals behave completely differently than raw minerals. They don't react with soil particles. They don't become locked up at the wrong pH. They remain available, mobile, ready for plant roots to absorb them directly. So what happens when you deliberately ferment wood ash? Let's walk through the chemistry. You start with a pH of 11 or higher. Caustic, dangerous. The kind of alkalinity that burns roots and kills soil microbes. You add a simple sugar source. Molasses works. So does fruit. Even a bit of rice water. This feeds the lactic acid bacteria that are naturally present in the environment and even on the ash itself. Within 48 to 72 hours, you'll see bubbles. That's carbon dioxide, the unmistakable sign of active fermentation. The bacteria are consuming sugar and exhaling gas. As fermentation progresses, those organic acids accumulate. Each molecule of lactic acid produced lowers the pH slightly. Over 5 to 14 days, depending on temperature, a solution that started above 11 can drop to the neutral range, around 7 to 8. The harsh potassium hydroxide gets converted. The calcium carbonate gets buffered. What remains is a liquid rich in chelated minerals. their edges softened, their availability enhanced. Agricultural research has confirmed that chelated nutrients dramatically outperform their raw counterparts. Studies published in Communications in Soil Science and Plant Analysis show that chelated micronutrients resist the soil chemistry problems that plague conventional fertilizers. They work across a wider pH range. They penetrate plant tissues more efficiently. The fermentation process essentially pre-digests the minerals, doing the work that soil microbes would normally have to do, but faster and more completely. By the 1850s, everything changed. Germany discovered massive underground deposits of potash salts. Mining was cheaper than burning forests. The product was uniform, predictable, shelf-stable. Then came 1910 and the Haber-Bosch process, which made synthetic nitrogen fertilizer abundant and cheap. Suddenly, agriculture had industrial-scale nutrients that could be bagged, shipped, and stored indefinitely. The old knowledge became economically irrelevant. Who needed fermented ash when you could buy a bag of guaranteed NPK? An MIT analysis of potash history called the disappearance of the American ash industry an economic crime because by the time farmers truly needed potassium fertilizers, the knowledge of how to produce them locally had already vanished. Today, 85% of America's potash comes from Canada. We import what our great-great-grandparents once exported and the living fertilizer they once made. It couldn't compete with dead minerals on a store shelf because a fermented solution won't sit in a warehouse for months. It's alive. It's active. It has to be used fresh, or it loses its potency. That's not a flaw. That's the feature. But it's a feature that doesn't fit our modern supply chains. So, can you actually do this at home? The process is straightforward, though it requires attention. Clean hardwood ash, sifted to remove charcoal chunks. Non-chlorinated water, since chlorine kills the bacteria you're trying to cultivate. A sugar source to feed the fermentation. A container that allows gas to escape, but keeps contaminants out. The ratio matters less than the conditions. Keep it warm. Stir occasionally. Watch for bubbles. Smell for the shift from sharp chemical odor to something earthier, almost yeasty. The timeline varies with temperature. 5 days in summer, 2 weeks in a cool basement. You'll know it's ready when the bubbling slows and the smell mellows. But here's what matters most: dilution. Even fermented, this is a concentrated mineral solution. 1 part to 20 parts water is a reasonable starting point. Apply to moist soil, never dry. Avoid seedlings. Avoid acid-loving plants like blueberries and rhododendrons. And never ever use ash from treated wood, painted surfaces, or anything that burned garbage. The heavy metals and toxins concentrate in ash, and no fermentation will remove them. Used correctly, this is potassium and calcium in a form plants can immediately absorb. No waiting for soil chemistry to break it down. No risk of the pH shock that raw ash creates. We live in an age of convenience. Bags of fertilizer with guaranteed numbers. Products that last forever on the shelf. But convenience has a cost. We forgot that our ancestors weren't just burning wood because they had to. They were producing something genuinely valuable. A living mineral tonic that modern science can now explain, but couldn't have improved upon. The fermentation transforms danger into opportunity. The organic acids do what industrial chemistry cannot, wrapping minerals in a form that speaks directly to plant biology. You can't buy this at a garden center. The physics won't allow it. An active ferment can't sit in a warehouse waiting to be purchased, but you can make it. In your kitchen, with materials that most people throw away. The knowledge exists. The chemistry is real. The history proves it worked. The only question is whether you're curious enough to try. Thanks for watching. If you found value in this, consider subscribing for more deep dives into forgotten knowledge. And if you try fermenting your own ash, I'd love to hear how it goes. Drop a comment below.